We're going to talk about how to write instructional objectives. Here are four main components of what instructional objectives should be, and you can see the main elements highlighted in bold. So one, objectives should be specific. They should describe precisely what the learner is expected to do. Two, objectives should be outcome-based, meaning that it should state what learners should be able to do after instruction. A lot of people tend to get it confused that objectives are what learners will be doing during instruction, but it's actually the post-instruction element. Also, it must be measurable. Learning outcomes that can be measured make for a much stronger lesson plan as well as an assessment piece. And fourth, should describe student behavior, should relate to what students will be able to do after instruction. And so you can kind of see a little bit of a common after instruction. It should be specific and it should be measurable. We use the ABCD of writing objectives, starting with A, the audience. The audience is simply the learner or the student. This does not need to be complicated. One of the points, less is more. We're really wanting to focus more on the behavior as well as the specific and measurable outcome. So when we get into B, behavior, this is the verb that describes what the learner will be able to do, once again, after instruction. It must be measurable. Try to avoid words that are difficult to measure, like appreciate. How do you measure students appreciating something? You must be able to observe the behavior. So once again, appreciating something can be very hard, not only to measure, but also to observe. And it must be specific. So we have A for audience, the learner, B for the behavior, the verb that will describe what the learner will do after instruction. It must be measurable and it must be observable as well. The depth of knowledge wheel provides a lot of really strong verbs for you to use in your objectives, and it's broken into 4 levels. Obviously, we want to navigate towards level 3 and level 4 for that higher order thinking, but there is absolutely places for level 1 and level 2 as well. These verbs are definitely observable and measurable. The condition, so we have A, audience, the learner, B, the behavioral verb, and then C, condition. So what will students be using to be able to accomplish this objective? Some examples are students will use sight words to identify, so on. Students will be using a book to be able to bump, bump, bump. Students will use class notes to bump, bump, bump. Now, the degree identifies the standard that the learner must meet to reach acceptable performance. We see a lot of times on objectives, students with 80% accuracy or 100% accuracy. I like to try to relate to real world expectations. It's a little bit more meaningful for students. And so providing a time limit is a little bit more of a real world expectation, possibly giving the number of correct answers, the range of accuracy, or even using a qualitative standard works for the degree. Once again, we come back to those 4 main components of instructional objectives being specific, outcome-based, measurable, and describing student behavior. Really what I look for when I'm grading objectives is it describing what students will be able to do after instruction? And then obviously the assessment piece needs to match the objectives. The better objective you write, the easier the assessment will be for you to conduct. It needs to be outcome-based, it needs to be specific, and it needs to be measurable. That's what I write on a lot of objectives that I would like students to work on a little bit more. Make the objective more specific, make the objective measurable, something that you can observe and something that you can measure.